history reminds us of the sorrow of war. Perhaps the division of our country, extending back to the legend of Lạc Long Quân and the fairy Oka, remains within each of us as we struggle to find wholeness from our history. On my journey to the United States, I often found myself staring at the waves of the vast ocean, searching for a sense of peace, only to one day recognize that I could find that peace in another country, while still holding a deep, abiding love and longing for my motherland. That was a deep division that remained within me for my entire life. Christina. I never imagined that Vietnam would play such a prominent role in my story. It was a distant land, foreign and unfamiliar. Growing up in small towns in the Southeast and Midwest with a less than 1% Asian population, I hadn't entertained the idea of visiting, let alone living there. It was easy to deny my Vietnamese heritage in a sea of white faces. My parents kept their history hidden away, never sharing it with my sister and me. They spoke Vietnamese to each other, but didn't teach us a single word, not even hello. They kept us at arm's length, distancing us from their world, withholding a past they seemed so desperate to keep locked up. There were hints, mostly old black and white photos I found in a box in the basement, reflecting another place and time where they existed together. I only knew fragments of the story and yearned to reconstruct their narrative. Throughout my childhood, there were moments when I was exposed to Vietnamese culture. We'd visit my father's family, who lived in Vietnamese communities such as Orange County, California, and New Orleans East, where hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese people created a version of Little Vietnam in the States. My uncle once took us to eat pho for breakfast. I asked him how people could eat such heavy meals, noodles and rare beef, for breakfast. He responded, "If you go to Vietnam, you will understand." Our family had a Sunday night tradition of eating what my sister and I coined noodle on the table, where we made summer rolls together, yet another tiny glimpse of my cultural background. Just as my parents seemed to withhold their history, I wanted to hide anything that identified me as being Vietnamese. I loathed my middle name, Duel, because it looked so unusual. Whenever friends came over to my house, I'd put away anything that looked foreign, like fish sauce and sriracha, not wanting to appear different from them. It wasn't until my mother was diagnosed with cancer that I learned more about her family. She'd been estranged from them for 20 years since she left Vietnam, and only months after her terminal diagnosis, when her brother in Louisiana contacted my father's brother in New Orleans, were they reunited. My mother's sisters and grandmother, who lived in Europe, visited and shared their refugee stories and how they rebuilt their lives, finding new homelands in Switzerland and France. Their stories opened my eyes to the significance of Vietnam in my family's past. Only then did I hear that I had a brother who passed away in Vietnam. Many years after that, I learned his name was Thang. In college, race began to rise in my consciousness as I began to explore my identity as a Vietnamese American. During my junior year, I waited tables at a Japanese restaurant and befriended other women who worked there, a Korean woman, a Japanese woman, and a Chinese American woman, born in Vietnam. I started to develop an understanding of a certain kinship that I could have with other Asians, in particular, a friendship, a sisterhood, which I'd never experienced before. There was a turning point when my college boyfriend and I broke up, and he asked me why we never spoke about being a mixed-race couple on a southern campus. Didn't you ever notice that people would look at us? I realized that my identity was not something I had explored or given much thought to. In retrospect, there were opportunities to be involved with Vietnamese communities on campus and even study Vietnamese, but I was not interested, keeping my cultural heritage at bay. And so, about a year after college, a desire suddenly burned deep within me to be someplace else, to know another country, and more importantly, to know myself better. I finally made the journey to Vietnam. There, I learned to understand my